Oh, that's a big one. Oh yeah, that's what I've been waiting for. I like that. Oh God! Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to be talking about the change of light bite. We're going to call it a magic hour. That hour in the morning from where when the sun's coming up and it changes from dark to light, and then again in the evening where you're changing from light to dark. There's always the best opportunity to have a compressed bite window where you can really catch not only good numbers of fish, but some big fish in the process. There's always a pattern to these change of light bites. The pattern's not always the same, but boy, it's pretty darn predictable. We're really going to be focusing on topwater fishing. Before we get going, I want to explain and break up the morning bite and break up the evening bite. And I'm going to break up both of these bite windows into 3 sections. So in the morning, let's say we have, let's say sun comes up at 5 a.m. in the morning and the sun goes down at 9 p.m. So between 4 and 5, we have night, dark fishing. 4 and 5. Between 5 and 6, we're going to call that the normal bite window, and then after 6, 6 in the morning, we're going to get into that daytime grind. Now in the evening, it's reversed. Obviously, if you come out for the evening bite, let's say you get out here at 7 o'clock, between 7 and 8, you're kind of fishing that daylight type fishing. Between 8 and 9, when the sun is going down, that's the magic hour. And then when the sun goes down, you're into that nighttime grind. And there is a nighttime grind out here. Just because the sun goes down doesn't mean you're going to start catching fish hand over fist. You've got to work for fish after dark, just like you have to work for them during daylight hours. The nighttime bite, generally, it will pick up, and as the sun goes down, right when you think the bite's going to really increase, it shuts off like a light switch. Now, there are exceptions with that. There's tides and there's moon phases and things that do play a part in that. But if you're out here fishing the evening bite and you're having a pretty good time and you're getting bit every 3 or 4 casts, and then all of a sudden you get bit every 5, 6 casts or 10 casts, it's going to stop right away. That's when you pack up and head out. The hour before the sun comes up is not a fast-paced fishery. The fish don't go crazy at that time. The fish usually start biting right about the time the sun comes up, and that's what I'm going to call the change of light bite. In the evening, as I said before, as that, you have a really good evening bite, the sun goes down, it stops. So we don't want to talk too much about that after dark or before sunlight fishing. But I will say this, it's going to be slow fishing, but that's when you want to pull out your bigger baits and fish for the fish of a lifetime, because most of the really big dominant female fish that I catch out here are caught just before sunup or right after the sun goes down, and we're talking about a 30 to 45 minute bite window for those big fish. Now you guys know I fish a lot at night. That doesn't mean that I don't catch bigger fish after dark, but generally, you've heard me say this before, if I don't get a fish 30 to 45 minutes after the sun goes down, I'm looking at the tides, I may take a nap, and if I have to get up at 3 in the morning and fish that, late night change of tide, that's when you'll also get some really big fish. I do suggest that you guys get out before the sun comes up if you're going to fish the morning bite. And I do suggest that if you're fishing the evening bite, once that bite dies, stay a little later and fish for the big fish. I don't think that those big, aggressive females like to compete with the smaller fish. So when everything is, moving, the bait's moving, there's birds out here, they're picking up bugs, the 10-inch fish are biting, the 2-pound fish are biting, the 5-pound fish are biting. The big dominant fish don't like to go in and compete with that. They'll start feeding earlier in the morning, and then in the evening, when the bite window dies, then the bigger fish will cruise for about a half hour, kind of picking up the scraps. So when you fish just before the sun comes up or just after the sun goes down, that's when I throw big baits. This is one of the baits that I throw. It's the River to Sea tactical wake bait. It's on a big swim bait rod, 300 reel, 65-pound straight braid. Other things that I throw before that to catch big fish, you can throw a rat, straight braid. This is a bait that I like, and I've caught a few fish on. It's from Headbangers, and I don't even know what they call this. Some of you guys may know what that is, but that's a good bait. The old noisy Dotch, it's I think that's a mega bass. It's a mega bass. I don't even know who makes this thing. The noisy Dutch, good bait. Here's the old the Mikey Senior. You guys know I love this one. If you have some of these or you can get them, this is a great bait. And then what I think I have this, a searching gill. I forget who makes this thing, but you see what I'm using out here. Big baits for big fish, and I am not worried about catching 2 and 3 and 4 pound fish. If I want to fish before the sun comes up or after the sun goes down, I'm looking for fish that are 5 pounds and above. Straight braid on everything, and you know, when something comes up and grabs it, you're going to jack their jaw, and it's going to be mano a mano. You're going to pull them in and get them in the net, and there's going to be no fooling around with them. So that's the hour before the sun comes up and the hour after the sun goes down. So before we start talking about the actual bite windows, I want to let you in on what you can expect for the time frames of bite windows. It's hard to predict either in the morning or in the evening when that bite window will start. Sometimes it starts right after the sun comes up in the morning. Sometimes it starts, you know, a couple hours before dark. You never know when it's going to start. But generally the bite windows last, I'll say 20 to 30 minutes, maybe up to about 45 minutes. That's a normal bite window. Sometimes you may only get 15 minutes out here, and you'll know when that happens because you'll be fishing and with nothing, you'll get 1 bite. And in the next 10 casts, you may get 7 bites. You'll catch 6 of those fish, and then it stops. That's a 15-minute bite window. You'll know when that happens. Generally, there is a little build-up and a little cool down to the bite windows. They start off slow, get to a fevered pace, and then drop down. In the evening, that's a little different. It just shuts off at dark. So don't expect those 2-hour bite windows. I'm telling you that because when you are fishing the morning and the evening, you've got to have everything set up. You've got to have all your baits. You've got to know where you're at, where you want to be, and you don't want to be fooling around, driving the monkey to the airport, getting hung up with cast and so on and so forth. You want to make that, we'll just call it that magic hour. You want to make that a very efficient hour when you're fishing. One of the other baits that I will use in the evening is a great big walking bait. This is a River to Sea bubble walker, and again, I have this on an X-Pride medium heavy straight braid, and I'll use this through that transition zone. As soon as the light, the darkness in the morning starts to turn to light, that's the transition zone I'm talking about. I'll start scaling down my bait. Before it gets light, this is going to pull the big fish. But once the fish get on their bite and they get into a frenzy, they don't care if it's 3 inches long or 5 inches long. Remember, the big dominant female, the double digit, 8, 9, 10, whatever you're looking for, early morning, they're going to take those big baits. Once the sun comes up and the fish start feeding, you don't have to worry so much about throwing these big baits. And you can scale down and start catching fish and having fun, and you'll find that even the 5, 6, 7 pound fish, they're not going to have any problem coming up to this bubble walker. Let's cut out for just a minute and talk about one of the baits that I really like to use out here. It's the River to Sea Whopper Plopper. This is the standard Whopper Plopper, and I think they make this in 6 sizes. There's a bigger size. This is the 5-inch. I forget the numbers on them. They do make a 7.5. It's a big bait that most people throw for pike, and I do use that after dark. This is the standard size that I use during the day. This is a little baby bubble walker. This one's too small. But what I want to get at is because the fish this year seem to have a preference for smaller baits, even the bigger fish, there's 3 baits, bubble walkers, that I like to throw after the sun comes up. This is that standard 90. It's been around for a while. This is, I think, a 75, and you can see the difference in this. And then this is I believe this is a 90. I like to throw the two smaller ones, the 75 and the 90. You can see I still got, I'm throwing this 75 on straight braid. The reason that I like to do this is because you can take these bubble walkers, or excuse me, whopper ploppers, and you can throw them on a spinning rod. Now I have my favorite Rico on here, and that's what I was using this morning, but I've got another rod under deck. If I have two spinning rods, I'll probably have this 75 whopper plopper and a Rico or a small popper on one. And for these, I will medium heavy 7 foot 2 spinning rod, 40-pound braid, about 3 to 4 feet of leader, and I'll go with anywhere from 12 to 14-pound test with my leader, always mono leader. This guy here is the one that I like, and the reason being is even though it's a short stubby thing, look at the size of the tail on this, or the what do we call it, the paddle, and look at the size on the 90. A lot different. It's almost the same size as the bigger bait. So this makes a lot of disturbance, but you can cast it with the spinning rod, you can underhand cast it, and you could put these things in, you know, you can put it right in little pockets and things. You can be very finessey and very accurate with casting these things. So don't be afraid to use a spinning rod. Make sure you've got adequate, 40-pound braid and a good leader on. Even if you can't, if you got a rod that's a little limber, you can still stick these fish and really try to, pull a big fish out of cover. Buzz baits. If I got a little chop on the water, I'll use a double buzz. My go-to single is just the old Cavatron single blade. This is, I think, a D&M. It's a big battleship. You guys know what these things are. Check out the trailer that I have on here. This is a Big Bite Baits salad spoon. This is what a salad spoon looks like. Why do I like this? Number one, this big tail creates some drag behind the bait, and you can see it's a very wide body bait. So what happens is, a lot of times this is a double buzz and they usually run pretty straight, but if you're running a Cavatron or something, a lot of times they'll roll over. With this flat body down here and the tail pulling with this disturbance back here, it helps to level the bait out. So a suggestion I would use, if you haven't tried these Big Bite Baits salad spoons, these are great trailers for buzz baits, so give those a try. I always keep a frog on. Same rod that I use in the daytime, I use it at change of light or after dark. 65-pound braid, a good solid frog rod that you can really stick something. Now you see I have a popping frog here, and you don't want that during the change of light. What you're going to want to look for are your standard frogs that are going to cut through the slot. I'm putting on a frog because I want to throw it in some of the vegetation, and remember, it's low light. A lot of times you can't see. I don't use the frog a whole lot in the morning, but there are certain times when I have to get it into places that I can't throw anything else. If you don't have to use them, don't use them. The fish that these frogs catch in the cover during the daytime that are way back in there, they're sitting down under the vegetation, and the only way you can get in there is to put a frog in there and have them blow up through some surface vegetation or something. Those same fish, as it from dark to light and again in the evening, those fish come out of the vegetation and they start moving right up and down the edges of whatever they're if it's hydrilla or if they're hyacinth, duckweed, whatever, they'll go out to the edge and they'll start moving around searching for food early. So instead of throwing a hollow body frog that has not the greatest hookup ratio, I'll stick to some of the walking baits or ploppers or things like that. So keep in mind, you have to make the decision, what am I going to be efficient with? Is it going to get hung up with a bunch of stuff on a bad cast? Am I going to have to clean it off every 2 minutes, so on and so forth, because you don't want to blow that 15 to 45 minute bite window that we're having. Okay, here's another little tip. If I find in the morning that I get a couple of big bites and they are on wake baits, and I get a couple of big bites on the, whatever it is, a rat, a tactical wake bait, whatever it is. As that sun comes up, unless the wind's blowing, I will scale down from a big wake bait to a smaller wake bait. This is a little Sioux witch, and this is the one that has the bill that, you know, you can either use it as a wake bait or kind of a crank bait or whatever. But I find once that sun comes up, again, the bigger fish that maybe you got a couple bites, or maybe you caught an 8-pounder on this, you want to keep it on because you think there's going to be another 8-pounder. No, go scale it down to a smaller like or similar bait, and what you'll do is you'll get more bites and you'll still catch those 5, 6, 7-pound fish. How these bite windows happen, they can happen in a flash. As soon as, you know, the sun comes up, bam, 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 and when it stops dramatically. Generally, what happens is the first few fish you get, or the first couple of bites you get, are smaller fish in any of these bite windows, whether it's in the morning or in the evening. You'll be fishing nothing. You'll get a kind of a little a male come up. I got a bite, you know, and then I got a bite, and you'll hook up with that fish, and it'll be a 10 or 12-inch fish, and you might catch 1 or 2 of those in maybe 3 or 4 casts. And then all of a sudden you'll get a 3-pounder. Then you'll have a big blow up, and then everything is just going crazy for, we'll say, our standard 30 to 45-minute bite window. Then you're going to find it at the heart of that fishing, when you're having fun, you're smiling, you're catching fish, you're catching 3, 4, 5-pound fish, then all of a sudden you catch another dink. That's not a good sign, because you're probably going to find what I have found out. You'll get another dink, and then it's going to be not every 3 casts, it's going to be every 6 casts, 7 casts. You'll get another dink, and then you cannot get them to bite. The bite window is over. Think about that. Small fish start the bite window. All fish come into play when they get aggressive, and then the smaller fish eat on the outgo of the bite window. Moon phases and colors. I disagree with a lot of guys when they talk about changing colors at low light. When it's dark outside, no moon phase, I always use black. If I have a frog, it's got some kind of black, maybe a yellow head on it. I don't care about the white-black thing. If it's a full moon, I'm using black all the time. If it's a no moon, I don't care. If I'm using something subsurface, it can be whatever color I'm fishing in the daytime. It will work in the evening. Always take into consideration what the forage is on your body of water. Here on the Delta in the summer, it's primarily bluegill and crayfish. If you stick to bluegill and crayfish colors, those are the natural colors. Those are the things that the fish are eating during the daylight, after dark, at low light periods, so on and so forth. It's more important to have baits that have drawing power because of the vibration. And that's another thing that I didn't mention. As I am running through my rotation of baits during that magic half hour, I may throw, I'll say, a walking bait, a big walking bait. If I'm not getting what I want, I may just drop that. Maybe I'm catching fish, but I'm not doing what I think I should. I'll drop the size down. If I'm still not doing something, maybe I'll take a bait like a whopper plopper so I can speed it up, or a buzz bait. Make quick decisions. You're not going to have a lot of time to dote on one bait or one technique. Make quick decisions. Throw a different bait for maybe 3 or 4 casts, and man, sometimes it's like a light switch. You're throwing this guy here, nothing. I'm tired of this. Put this on, maybe same color, maybe different color, and bam, 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 bam. They start off just tearing it up. And you'll say, man, I'm glad I changed that bait out. You generally want to change from slower moving baits to faster moving baits to wake baits, and I am talking about wake baits as a visual bait that the fish can see, and I'm keeping them right up on the surface. So I'm kind of condensing those wake baits into my topwater arsenal during the change of light bites. There are other things that will work during the change of light bites. Chatterbaits work great. Worms work great. you know, crankbaits can work great. So if you feel like substituting some of the topwater baits that I've talked about with subsurface, go ahead and do that. I'm just talking about the topwaters because that's what I like. When you get that big fish to blow up early, when everything's quiet, it's just not a feel. It's a visual. You can hear the thing, and sometimes it sounds like a darn beaver coming up and just smashing these things. And that's the whole experience. That's why I like to use topwaters at low light periods in the morning and the evening. Let me know how you guys are doing, and like I said, if you have any questions, hit me up in the comments. I try to answer everyone's question that comes in. Every now and then I miss it. It's not because I don't like you, you said something awful to me. It's just that I probably didn't catch your comment. Anyhow, thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. And until the next video, we'll see you guys on the water.